Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai, Prabhupada Jai, Prabhupada Jai, Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Status Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Ki, Sri Giri Govardhan Ki, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki, Sankirtan Yagya Ki, Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 5, Frustration of the Sacrifice of Daksha. And we're going to read verses 22, 23, 24, 25 and 26, I believe, yes, okay. And 24 is the one with the purport. So let us read, I'll just read 22 and 23 to start off with, and then we'll do 24 responsively, and after that, I'll do 25 and 26. Okay, so here's verse 22. Akram yorasi dakshasya sitadarena hetina chindanapi tad udartum nashaknot triambakas tada. Then Virabhadra, the giant-like personality, sat on the chest of Daksha and tried to separate his head from his body with sharp weapons, but was unsuccessful. 23. Shastraya astran vitair evam anirbina twacham hara vismayam param apano dajo pashu patish chiram. He tried to cut the head of Daksha with hymns as well as weapons, But still it was hard to cut even the surface of the skin of Daksha's head. Thus, Virabhadra was exceedingly bewildered. What an amazing situation. So, okay, 24, responsively. Drishtva samgyapanam yogam pashunam sa patir makhe yajamana pasho kasya kayat tena harach chira drishtva samgyapanam yogam pashunam sapatir makhe yajamana pashokasya kayatena harachchira drishtva samgyapanam yogam pashunam sapatir makhe yajamana pashokasya kayatena harachchira drishtva samgyapanam yogam pashunam sapatir makhe yajamana pashokasya kayatena harachchira. Drishtva, having seen, Samgyapanam, for the killing of the animals in the sacrifice. Yogam, the device, Pashunam, of the animals. Sa, he, Virabhadra, Pati, the Lord, Makhe, in the sacrifice. Yajamana Pasho, who was an animal in the form of the chief of the sacrifice. Kasya, of Daksha. Kayat, from the body. Tena, by that device. Aharat, severed. Shira, his head. Translation, then Virabhadra saw the wooden device in the sacrificial arena by which the animals were to have been killed. He took the opportunity of this facility to behead Daksha. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this connection, it is to be noted that the device used for killing animals in the sacrifice was not designed to facilitate eating their flesh. The killing was specifically intended to give a new life to the sacrificed animal by the power of Vedic mantra. The animals were sacrificed to test the strength of Vedic mantras. Yajnas were performed as a test of the mantra. Even in the modern age, tests are executed on animal bodies in the physiology laboratory. Similarly, whether or not the Brahmins were uttering the Vedic hymns correctly was tested by sacrifice in the arena. On the whole, the animals thus sacrificed were not at all the losers. Some old animals would be sacrificed, but in exchange for their old bodies, they received other new bodies. That was the test of Vedic mantras. Virabhadra, instead of sacrificing animals with the wooden device, immediately beheaded Daksha to the astonishment of everyone. So let me read also verses 25 and 26. Sadhuvadas tatatesham karmatatasya pashyatam bhuta preta pishachanam anyesham tad viparyaya. Upon seeing the action of Virabhadra, the party of Lord Shiva was pleased and cried out joyfully. And all the bhutas, ghosts and demons that had come, made a tumultuous sound. On the other hand, the Brahmins in charge of the sacrifice cried out in grief at the death of Daksha. Text 26. Juhavai touch chirastasmin, dakshinagna vamarshita, tadeva yajanam dagdva, pratishtad guyakalayam. Virabhadra then took the head and with great anger threw it into the southern side of the sacrificial fire, offering it as an oblation. In this way, the followers of Lord Shiva devastated all the arrangements for sacrifice. After setting fire to the whole arena, they departed for their master's abode, Kailas. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth canto, 5th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Frustration of the Sacrifice of Daksha. And let me just read verse 24 again, just a sec. Drishtva gyāpanam yogam pashunam sapatir make yajamana pasho kasya kaya tena harachchira. Then Virabhadra saw the wooden device in the sacrificial arena by which the animals were to have been killed. He took the opportunity of this facility to behead Daksha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shivati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyachadeshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchkalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, so very dramatic. Very dramatic indeed. And just one point that comes up initially in the first couple of verses, really, 22 and 23, is that Daksha, despite his disqualifications, extremely serious disqualifications, he had such good karma, at least we could say, that even for like a monster like Virabhadra, who's just, well, he's a monster, he's some gigantic, extremely powerful creature, person, couldn't cut his skin even, what to speak of cut off his head, which was the idea, but couldn't even penetrate his skin. So, it's just Daksha. He's a special person. He's Prajapati. He's one of the sons of Lord Brahma directly. And despite his two serious disqualifications, still he had that sort of capacity or whatever. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Us, of course, you take, because Virabhadra means auspicious hero. Really interesting name. Auspicious hero. He was using different weapons, shastrai, not shastrai. Shastra is scripture, but shastrai. He was using weapons, and they were really very, very sharp, extremely effective weapons. And he was using hymns, some sorts of mantras, head cutting off mantras, some sort of something along those lines. But despite that, he couldn't cut even the surface of the skin of Daksha's head. And, if whenever we cut something, just a little touch is sufficient to at least cut the surface of the skin. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Yeah, so the men at least who are shaving regularly, sometimes just a little slip and you can have a cut, and it can be quite unpleasant. But Daksha, this was the condition of Daksha. There's a similar, not unrelated at least, situation in the 6th canto. Very interesting, in the story of Vritrasura. And there, Lord Indra, who's a lot more powerful than Virabhadra, and a lot more pious and special and chief of the demigods, he has to decapitate, Lord Indra has to decapitate Vritrasura, but it takes him 1 year. It takes 1 year. And finally, he manages to cut the head off. And Vritrasura the whole time is telling him, come on, do it. But even Lord Indra couldn't just do it. So it's an interesting point, at least in principle, like about the natures of these higher personalities. Lord Brahma, he has a body, a material body, made of some sort of combination of some versions of the usual elements which our bodies are made from: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. But higher level earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So his body lives for 311 trillion, 40 billion of our years. We, if we live to be 100, it'll be really quite extraordinary. Average is something like, 80 or 75 or so these days. But then you take lower animals like dogs. Their bodies are also combinations of some types of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. But dogs and other animals, similar, cows also, I don't know about sheep or cats, but I know those two categories, dogs and cows. If a dog lives to be 15, it's old. And similarly with cows, if they live to be 15 or 20, they're really old. And, you see, if you see a 15-year-old dog, there's all gray hairs, just like us when we reach, a certain age. In so many cases, the person's hair becomes gray. It's a sign of aging. But the body of the dog will be gray at the age of 15 or so. So it's all earth, water, fire, air, and ether. It's not that their bodies are made of some other things. but there are just different grades. They're just different grades of these components or whatever. And yes, so just like there are different grades of metals, that some very high-grade metal, like gold particularly, is famous. It doesn't corrode and sort of deteriorate with age, but other metals, they corrode just after getting a bit of rain on them, they start corroding. They're metals, but they're different grades. So Daksha, in his way, he's got a special type of body. Yes. But, of course, his consciousness is another thing. But then again, his body is not special enough, because, as we read in verse 24, Virabhadra took the device for killing the animals. It was a wooden device, but it must have had some sort of blade. It sounds like it's some version of a guillotine or something like that. Yeah, heavy, very heavy device with a sharp blade, and it falls from a height and just bang, removes the head of whoever's unfortunate to be enough to be underneath it. Yes, so something like that, some sort of device of that sort. And that just, as Prabhupada says, immediately beheaded Daksha. That was it. Just immediately. No delay, didn't have to do it twice or 3 times or something. Immediately beheaded Daksha. Yes, so, well, and then just to, you could say, add insult to extreme injury, Virabhadra then picked up the head and threw it into the southern side of the sacrificial fire, as if it's an oblation and like an official offering in terms of the ritualistic considerations of the sacrifice. Yeah, and actually, of course, we're going to be reading on, there's another 2 chapters which discuss this whole pastime. It's quite a bit of further discussion. And in the end, when Daksha is given the head of a goat, there's a little discussion or mention about the possibility of putting his original head back on. But the thing is, it had been thrown into the fire, and so had become damaged too badly to be reused. A second-hand head. Anyway, so they took a goat's head. Yes. So, what a situation, what a shocking situation. It's amazing. And particularly the Brahmins, of course, they couldn't do anything, but they were just deeply disturbed by the whole situation. So, and just one thing I was thinking, Ramanuja Prabhu is starting his Sanskrit course today, I heard. Is that right? I think so. And just looking at this verse, verse 24. And anyway, you can look at it when you get into it. And by looking at the endings, you can tell what sense or what case, in fact, grammatically, is being used. Drishtva, having seen, is a past participle. Some gyapanam, for the killing of animals in the sacrifice, it's an adjective. And yogam, the device, is a noun, but in the accusative case, it's the object. Yeah. Having seen what? The device is the object and not the subject. Anyway, you can get into that with Ramanujacharya, but it's interesting. Very interesting, actually. So as Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, Prabhupada goes into a particular type of discussion about sacrifices, and at least back in those days, in the old days, when people were really qualified, particularly the Brahmins were really qualified, then they would do these sacrifices. It was normal to do sacrifices like this. And the sacrifice of the animal would just be one part of a greater process. The greater process was appealing to a demigod for some material thing. And as Prabhupada explains here, the killing of the animal, the sacrifice of the animal, was just a sort of a technical part of the process, just to see how has the whole overall process been done. Has it been done properly? Is it going to be effective? Are the mantras going to be effective? Because the mantras are the main thing. The mantras appealing for whatever to whoever is being approached. So it's not just a way of killing an animal. Even occasionally, when we go to India, even occasionally I've seen in Vrindavan, and we were in Govardhan a few years ago, and there was, I think it was a newspaper, or maybe it was some sort of there was some sort of announcement type of thing for an Ashvamedha Yajna was going to be done somewhere near Govardhan Hill. And so I saw that and I thought, my gosh. Now Ashvamedha, Ashva means horse. Sounds like they're going to kill a horse for some reason, whatever, in order to do something or achieve something. But we did not go to witness it or participate or whatever. Yeah. So we didn't go. Because people do these types of sacrifice, different types of animal sacrifices, even here in South Africa. I assume it still goes on to some degree. And of course in India it definitely goes on, like in Bengal, animal sacrifices to Kali. These things go on. But not like this. Not like this. In the time of Buddha, the process of animal sacrifice had come down to the point where the temples were just slaughterhouses. They were basically just slaughterhouses, and the animals, there was some sort of religious, maybe some mantras or whatever, were chanted when the animals were killed. But effectively, it was just a process of killing animals and then selling the bodies of the animals to people who wanted to eat meat. But somehow they felt that there was some piety and some benefit in it having been done in that type of way. So of course, generally speaking, as we understand, the animal sacrifices which are done nowadays are not done in exactly that spirit. But certainly the people who are doing the sacrifices just don't have the qualification. It depends on the qualification of the people who are conducting the sacrifice. So the people here means the Brahmins, these Brahmins who were shocked by the killing of Daksha but didn't do anything. They still, despite supporting Daksha and in this way showing disqualification, supporting such an offensive person as Daksha, but still they had certain types of qualification, that they would sacrifice an animal, and the animal on the spot in front of everyone's eyes would not exactly perhaps be reborn, but would somehow manifest a new body of a young animal. It's very amazing. Very, very amazing. So of course this depends on the qualification of the people who are performing the sacrifice, of the people particularly who are chanting the mantras. And the killing of the animal, as Prabhupada describes here, and in a number of places Prabhupada elsewhere also discusses the same idea, that it was simply done just to show that actually, yes, the result of the yajna is going to be there. It's going to be there because the Brahmins have that qualification to replace the body of the sacrificed animal with a new one. Of course, nowadays in Kali Yuga, these things do not work. They really do not work. And therefore in Kali Yuga, the process is yagyai sankirtana praya, yajanti hi sumedha sa. That people who are sufficiently intelligent will perform sacrifice. They'll perform sacrifice, but in the form of the Sankirtan Yajna. Again, it's mantra. It's mantra. It's particularly the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So, And again, of course, to at least some degree, the question of qualification of those, the consciousness of those performing the Sankirtan Yajna is definitely a consideration. If we hear the holy names chanted by a great pure devotee, someone like Srila Prabhupada, then that chanting has much more effect than the chanting of someone less qualified. Yes. So the same principle is there of qualification, sincerity of chanting, purity of heart, purity of chanting. And if the Sankirtan Yajna is performed very nicely, then of course it influences people. And of course, interesting point, Srila Prabhupada adopted the practice in the context of Sankirtan Yajna. Prabhupada adopted the practice of having the devotees distribute his books. And actually, he encouraged that as time went on a little. Prabhupada encouraged that over the performance of Harinam Sankirtan. Not that he exactly discouraged Harinam Sankirtan, but definitely Srila Prabhupada put emphasis on Sankirtan in the form of distributing his books, which are pure chanting. They're simply pure and perfect chanting. And the effect we've seen in so many cases, huge number of cases, is that people's hearts have become changed. And people have become devotees. So many people have become devotees through receiving Srila Prabhupada's books. So that's there, but in principle for us, with our chanting, without the efforts we make in Krishna consciousness, and particularly with our chanting of mantra, we have to really try to chant sincerely from the heart, without offenses, as much as is possible, and very attentively like that. And then first thing will be that we'll become purified. Some purification will take place. And we can feel that. If, for example, when we chant our japa, if we chant our japa particularly nicely, then you feel enlivenment and some transcendental empowerment even, and clearing of the consciousness. Yeah. So that's also part of Sankirtan Yajna. And then if we distribute Krishna consciousness in that sort of spirit, then the deeper effect will be there on the people in general. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comments, questions, words of wisdom, correction? Jai Sachinandan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for that very enlightening class. I was trying to understand the repercussions and the consequences of Daksha's actions preceding to this finale. That he was very, his shambolic display of outbursts to Lord Shiva, who is regarded as the Vaishnavanam Yata. Shambho is like the topmost Vaishnava. And it highlights of aparad, what is the consequences of aparad. It can be dire consequences. One can lose his fortune, his family, his life.
Sure. Yeah. He's doing a sacrifice. He's got all these qualified Brahmins who are able to do things like this, revive the animals. But it's mixed, with this heavy disqualification, and as a result, it's just shocking. It's incredibly shocking. Of course, over the next couple of chapters, we'll see how Lord Brahma, first of all, manages to correct Daksha. Yeah. But still, the fact is that despite the qualification in different ways, but the disqualification just corrupts everything to an incredible degree. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Pramash. Thank you for the nice class. I'm just appreciating this different aspects of sacrifice that you've highlighted. And there's quite a few different levels. Starting right from the bottom, you've explained that sacrifice is actually in the Rig Veda, where in Kali Yuga people are sacrificing animals, and one of the requirements I recall is that animal has to be taken on the outskirts of the city. And I was thinking that, the city is normally in the mode of passion, so we don't want this mode of ignorance to prevail in that city, and that's why it has to be done on the outskirts. And then you eat the animal out there, and then you come back into the city. So, and it's on a very low level, but again, like you said, it's for purification of that person in the mode of ignorance. And hopefully he'll come to his senses and realize that, oh yes, in this lifetime I'm killing you, and next lifetime you killed me. Oh no, this is not going to work for me. So he stops eating the animal. And then we come to the sacrifice that Daksha is performing. We see that also it attracts the demigods, and it attracts Brahma as well, and Vishnu. So this must be in the mode of goodness, on a very high level of goodness. And then finally, you've spoken about chanting of the Maha Mantra, the Sankirtan Yajna. It helps us in terms of positioning how fortunate we are to be able to chant this Maha Mantra, and not everyone's so fortunate. So, and then it also behooves us as devotees to ensure that we still try to create the good fortune amongst the fallen souls by spreading this Sankirtan Yajna. So
Right.
appreciate that.
Good. Yeah, spread good fortune amongst the conditioned souls and ourselves. Yeah. Swarup Damodar Prabhu? Anyone else? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.